Hello everyone. This is Charles with the Exodus Logistics Learning Center, the online course Dispatcher 101 Training for Beginners. We are entering now Module 2, which is load boards. Module 2 will contain 3 lessons. This will be Lesson 1, what is a load board. Lesson 2 will be the common load boards that we can see. And then Lesson 3 is how to navigate the load boards. So this is Lesson 1. What is a load board? So a load board is an online tool used by shippers, brokers, as well as carriers to post their loads, post their trucks in regards to the posting loads is in regards to the brokers and the shippers. Posting trucks is in regards to the carriers. They want to post their trucks as being available. Also, sometimes brokers who are asset-based brokers, they post trucks as well on their trucking side. Search loads, carriers search loads, and search trucks. The brokers and shippers search their trucks because they need those assets to move their freight from their shipper to their receiver. So depending on the type of load board subscription you pay for, and that determines the type of features that you will have. So broker level load boards, broker and shipper level load boards, I should say, have the ability to post loads, post trucks, search loads, and search trucks. The carrier level login or subscription based for a load board, the carrier side has only the ability to post their trucks as being available and search for loads. That's the only reason. That's the only feature that carriers should have. Carriers shouldn't have a load board that can post loads because they are not brokers, or search trucks because they are not brokers. They can only search search loads and post trucks. So again, shippers use load boards to post their freight in an effort to get carriers to directly call them to book the loads, or to get brokers to solicit them for services. So that's what the shippers do. They put their loads out, and they can either use brokers to broker their loads for them through a load tender, or they can use direct carriers to move their loads. And that's the shippers. Now the brokers, they post loads for the broker is a middleman between their customer, who is the shipper, and the carrier with whom they are moving the loads with. So the brokers get the loads from their customers, who are the shippers, and then they post those loads on the load board in an effort to get carriers to contact them, and they can move those loads. Now, the way brokers make their income is they'll have a certain percentage that they mark off from the shipper's loads, the load tender, and they'll make their percentage, and then they'll resell that load to the carrier. For example, if I'm a broker and I get a customer under an agreement, a broker shipper agreement, and they send me 10 loads a week, each load tender is $5,000 for those loads, then the broker is going to invoice the shipper $5,000 to move the load, but they're going to pay the carriers with a rate confirmation, not a load tender, but a rate confirmation of, say, $4,000. So they may have taken 20% off the $5,000, which is $1,000, and they resold that load to a carrier for $4,000. So that's how brokering kind of works. They take their percentage off, and they move the loads in a more high volume way. Sometimes shippers don't have time to do all that, so that's one of the reasons why they broker loads. Some shippers work with brokers, others do not work with brokers. They work directly with the carriers, individual carriers, or trucking companies. So again, brokers post their customers, who are the shippers, post the loads for them in an effort to get carriers to contact them to get set up via a carrier packet to move those loads. The rates and fees of the loads posted by the brokers can vary depending on the rate that they receive the load from the shipper. So again, in that example, that $5,000 example, the broker may have marked anywhere between 15 to 20% off, and then resold the load and reposted the load as a rate confirmation for the carrier to decide to get that load. The better the shipper rate, the better the possibility of the load rate being passed to the carrier. And that makes sense. The higher the load, like the $5,000, then the broker can sell a load to a carrier for $4,800, thus making only $200 per load. So if you get a $4,800 load as opposed to a $4,000 load, a carrier will be more than willing to move that $4,800 load than they would that $4,000 load. So the broker may not make as much money, $1,000, as opposed to the $200 they made off of that $5,000 original load tender coming from the shipper through the brokerage. So sometimes brokers will have to think of in terms of volume and leverage to move more loads to get more tenders, as opposed to trying to become greedy, mark as much off as they can, and then a load to sit there for a long period of time and not move because they're taking too much off the load tender. Then the shipper will wonder, well, why is the load not moving? They're going to go with another broker. So this is the ideal way it should be. It should go in a utopian society, but some brokers try to take more money from a load, thus the carrier loses out on the process. So I put that in red. Be mindful of that. So it's a volume thing, and it's a volume. It's trying to make everyone happy. It's a win-win situation. So as a broker, you have to try to find a median between satisfying your shipper and satisfying the carrier. So you can satisfy your shipper by satisfying your carrier, providing higher paying loads. Thus, those loads will move quicker. And then the shipper sees that, they'll provide you with more loads. Again, it gets into the volume concept. So I'd rather have a high volume of loads moving at a low margin for me as a broker than to have a small number of loads from a shipper at a high margin trying to make as much off that load, each load, as possible. So if the broker is an asset-based broker, meaning they have their own trucks internally, their own trucking side to their brokering, then they are able to book the loads for their trucks. So that's an advantage too. If you're an asset-based brokerage, you have your own trucking side of your brokerage, then you can book loads yourself. You would just go after shippers for equipment types that match the equipment types for your trucking side of your logistics firm. Okay. Carriers search for loads on the load boards, as well as post their trucks on the load boards as being available or empty, in order to get calls from either brokers or shippers once they see those trucks as being available, as to the availability of those trucks. So that's another reason why the carriers use the load boards. They search for loads, and then they also, while they're under a load, they'll have an account with certain load boards, and then they'll make their truck as being empty maybe on the day that they drop off the load that they're currently under. So they're kind of trying to strategically load plan their routes or their loads, so. And if you're a good carrier, you try to plan ahead and do stuff like that. You try to, while you're under a current load, you're moving a load right now from A to B. Once you get to B, you can get on a load board and post your truck as being empty on the day or maybe the next day of where you're dropping off at B, at the receiver, the location there. So by the time you get empty, you'll probably have already gotten a call from a broker or a shipper saying, hey, you're going to be empty over there. When can you pick this load up? And you can pretty much realistically give them an idea based off of where you are now, the time you're going to be empty, and the amount of deadhead miles you need to drive to that location, depending on how you did your criteria when you posted your truck as being available on that day within a certain deadhead miles. So brokers and or shippers purchase load boards with most of the features included. Again, those features they are able to search trucks, post loads, post trucks, and search loads. Those are the features. The carriers, as a repeat, they only purchase load boards with the two features, because as a carrier, if I'm a carrier, I only need the load board to either make my truck as being empty, being available, so I need to post my truck. And the second feature, as a carrier, I need to be able to search for loads, because I'm looking for loads. That's how I make money as a carrier. So that's the purpose of the load board. Those are the players that are on the load board. In the next lesson, we'll get into the different types of load boards, at least three of the main types. 123 load board, the Trucker's Edge version of DAT. DAT is an acronym that stands for Dial a Truck, and then Internet Truck Stop. So I will see you guys in lesson 2 under module 2.